Greetings Far Cry fans, it is I, Eurogamer's Ian Higton, back once again with yet another Far Cry 6 theory, and in terms of theories, this one is really out there, because it suggests that you may be able to unlock superhuman powers for Dani Rojas during your fight to defeat Anton Castillo and his army. Now, some of you may think my tinfoil conspiracy cap might be cutting off the blood supply to my brain for this one, but superpowers aren't unheard of in Far Cry games. So let's get to the bottom of this mystery by examining all the clues available to us in super nerdy detail. So first off, you're probably wondering what on earth has sparked off this superhuman idea in the first place. Well, this whole theory is based off of about 12 seconds worth of footage from the recent Far Cry 6 worldwide gameplay reveal. Specifically, this moment here, where just behind a postcard of Yara, we can see a section of a memo which literally features the words superhuman on it. In terms of gameplay, superhuman powers would be a pretty big deal indeed, and their introduction would have the potential to add a really bizarre twist to a game that so far hasn't shown any signs of having any supernatural elements in it at all. But is this really concrete proof of a super-powered plot twist? Well, I guess the most sensible thing to do if we want to properly investigate this theory is to try to figure out exactly what this memo is actually saying. While there are two paragraphs on show here, the second one seems to focus just on militaristic solutions to the guerrilla problem, so I'll only be concentrating on the top paragraph here because this is where all the interesting stuff lies. Okay, let's start with the words we can make out. There's warehouses, then reports of guerrilla, there's the Viviro trailers in. Next line is, from FND patrols that the. Then we've got have superhuman, and finally, after a large redacted section, we see the word runoff. But what does this all mean? Can we make a bit more sense of it all if we try to guess some of the words that might be obscured, I wonder? Well, we won't know for sure unless we give it a try. Due to the topic of the memo, it stands to reason that the first partial word could be attention. On the next line, we have a partial word ending in ZA. ZA isn't exactly the most common pairing of letters to end a word with, so I'd put money on this word being Esperanza. The next partial word, the one that is circled, is almost certainly going to be incident, but there might be enough space to have another word before this, something like major or serious maybe. Okay, on to the main paragraph. So my guess is that it likely says multiple, then reports of guerrilla, and then the most likely word after that would be activity. But I'm not 100% sure how much of each sentence is obscured by the postcard. There may be one or two more words after activity, but really, there's no way to know for sure. The start of the next line could honestly be anything, but I'm going to hazard a guess that maybe the missing word could be near? There are plenty of hijacking missions in past Far Cry games, so a set of missions where you have to accompany guerrillas on a mission to hijack Viviro trailers seems pretty likely to me. The last word on this line is a bit of a puzzle though. The characters have almost been completely removed, and because of this, it's really hard to make out what they could be. Due to the structure of the sentence, it looks like this next word might be a location though, which would mean the first character was a capital letter. So from the shape of this, I'd say it's highly likely that it could be an E for Esperanza. The first word of the third line is another one I'm not too sure about. It ends in MS, which could be one of a million words, but in the context of the memo being an incident report, I'd say something like claims might be a good guess. Then that full sentence would be claims from FND patrols that the. FND, just in case you were wondering, is a military abbreviation for friendly, so here it means friendly patrols. The next sentence though is the one that gets really interesting. The first word here is almost certainly guerrillas, whilst the final word starting with PO is likely to be powers? The final two sentences I'll group into one because of the large redacted portion. I think this sentence may be an attempt by whoever is writing the memo to come up with a rational excuse for what is happening. So before the word to, I think maybe it'll say due? That means the full note would say something along the lines of, "Attention, Esperanza warehouses, serious incident. Multiple reports of guerrilla activity near the BioVida trailers in Esperanza. Claims from FND patrols that the guerrillas have superhuman powers due to redacted runoff." So, what about the runoff? What is that? Well, the hyphen suggests it's something like water runoff, where there's a presence of more surface liquid than the land can absorb. So instead of going into the soil, this liquid runs off and enters the nearest water source. So, while there's no way to know for sure what is actually written in that redacted section, going by everything we know so far, I'd say that potentially whatever was stored in the hijacked BioVida trucks has leaked into a source of drinking water, and this is what the patrols believe has given local guerrillas superhuman powers. Right, so now we've got a pretty good estimate for what the memo says, we now need to try to understand its contents a little bit better. And by that, I mean we need to know exactly what is causing these superhuman powers. And if you've watched my previous Far Cry 6 video where I attempt to predict the plot of the game, you'll remember me specifically talking about this scene here.
Let them go. They can work. Make Viviro.
Truth or lies?
In my plot prediction video, I surmised that Viviro was Far Cry 6's version of the Bliss drug from Far Cry 5, and that Viviro itself would sometimes take the form of a red smoke. A red smoke that Anton would force the population of Yara to breathe in order to gain control over them. It's a fanciful story, but is there any way to tie the ideas in these two videos together? Well, yes, there is. In this short clip from the recent Far Cry 6 Resolver trailer, we not only get a great look at one of the aforementioned BioVida trailers from the memo, but what's that leaking from all the bullet holes in it? Well, I reckon what we're seeing there are some big red clouds of Viviro. Whether this is pure Viviro on its way to be used by Anton or an unprocessed form being transported to a manufacturing plant is anyone's guess, but I would be very surprised if this isn't some form of this mysterious drug. So, we've got a pretty convincing argument here that Viviro from inside the hijacked BioVida trailers is the catalyst for the guerrillas' development of superhuman powers. But what kind of powers are these exactly? We've seen Far Cry protagonists with superhuman abilities before, most notably Jack Carver from the original Far Cry Instincts, who was given brutal, animalistic feral abilities after being injected by Dr. Krieger's serum. Or there's Jason Brody from Far Cry 3, whose Tatau enhances his physical abilities and even accelerates his healing process. But unfortunately for us, and for these soldiers here, while a large dose of Viviro to the lungs may give you superhuman powers, I'm pretty sure the side effects probably won't be worth it. If, as I suspect, Viviro is the Far Cry 6 version of Bliss, then to understand its potential effects, we first need to know what Bliss does to people in Far Cry 5. And what it does to people in Far Cry 5 is bad. Now, if you've played Far Cry 5, you'll already be familiar with the Bliss Angels. These are normal people who went to work for Faith Seed on the manufacture and distribution of the drug Bliss. Bliss comes from these white flowers here, which have strange hallucinogenic properties. But that's not all. Here's Far Cry's Grace Armstrong to tell us more.
Faith's got this thing called the Bliss that'll fuck you right up. Makes you feel all tingly and weird. And from what I hear, you'll just want more.
And what happens when you are able to have more and then start to overdose on Bliss? Well, that's how Bliss Angels are created, and they do indeed have superhuman powers. Just not very nice ones. You see, overexposure to Bliss causes damage to the nervous system, and this basically turns people into mindless zombies who become less sensitive to pain and fatigue. Not only this, but they become super aggressive, and in extreme circumstances, they can even reanimate after a period of being seen as dead, as long as they've not been shot in the head or killed via a takedown, that is.
You ever just sit back and watch the angels do their thing? Makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up. I don't know. I mean, they're people, right? At least they used to be. Who knows what's going on in those brains now?
So, back to the BioVida tanker then, and you see the way those soldiers are choking on the Viviro there? I think that's the start of the process that turns them into something like the zombified Bliss Angels. I think anyone suffering from overexposure to Viviro in Far Cry 6 will act pretty much like those suffering from a Bliss overdose in Far Cry 5. So instead of having a white cloud above their heads signifying they're a Bliss Angel, in Far Cry 6, Viviro Angels, or whatever they'll be called, will probably be sporting a red cloud. And this, in my opinion, will be where the reports of super-powered gorillas come from. Gorillas will have hijacked some BioVida trucks, one of those trucks will become damaged in some way, probably a stray bullet or something, then the Viviro will pour out of the tanker, run into the water supply which the gorillas will then drink, and the next thing Anton's forces know, they're being attacked by super strong, super aggressive gorillas who feel no pain and only care about tearing their enemy apart. So then, to answer the original query posted by this video, which was, will you get superhuman powers in Far Cry 6? I'd say, probably not. It's almost 100% likely that there will be at least one mission where Dani feels the full effects of Viviro for themselves, but in terms of becoming some kind of super-powered man-beast like, say, Jack Carver, I don't think so. I think instead we'll see plenty of these so-called Viviro Angels popping up around the world, giving us tougher enemies to fight or stealth our way past. Hell, maybe these soldiers choking here are about to turn into rage monsters themselves, who will then start to attack their allies. That would mean there could be the potential to use some kind of Viviro bombs against Anton's forces and turn them against one another, a bit like, say, Bioshock's Enrage Plasmid or Assassin's Creed's Berserk Darts. Now, this all does sound pretty far-fetched, but as with all of my theories, I do try to give at least one down-to-earth reason for the events featured, and I've got one of those for this theory too. While my money is still riding on the Viviro drug idea, it is entirely possible that there could be a normal explanation for the superhuman memo. And that is simply that Dani is such a good fighter that the panicked patrols may think that they are fighting more than just one lone gorilla. In fact, Naveed Haveri pretty much says so himself. Look, right here.
Every aspect of the game has been developed with the goal to make you feel like a guerrilla fighter, battling an asymmetric war against Anton and his army. The guerrilla fantasy is all about making one gorilla feel like 1,000. Embracing this was at the core of how we crafted our gameplay, our world, and the characters you'll meet along the way.
So, is Dani's impressive arsenal of Resolver weapons and Supremo backpacks enough to put the fear of God into Anton's patrols and make them think that they are actually fighting a pack of powerful guerrilla fighters? Or like me, do you think that perhaps the drug Viviro and its side effects might be turning ordinary people into mindless zombies with superhuman strength? Hell, maybe you have another theory entirely. Let us know in the comments below, like and subscribe for more Far Cry 6 coverage and daily videos here on Eurogamer, and don't forget to check out our Team Eurogamer Instagram account and our members exclusive Discord channel if you fancy a bit more behind the scenes stuff too. Right, that's me done, so I guess I better head off and track down some more Far Cry 6 theories for later on here on Eurogamer. But if you haven't had your fill of my crazy conspiracies yet, why not check out some of my other Far Cry 6 theory videos that are on screen and clickable right now. Goodbye!